Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ask the Educator podcast. This is Kevin, your host, and joining me as always, Adam Okada. And for this episode, this is going to be a special one to me because we're going to do a probably a final interview, I guess, with my good friend Stephen Kovach. Of course, he's always welcome back at any time to do a podcast with us. But as many of you may not know, he is retiring at the end of this year. So I'm really excited to get into this. There's a lot to such a illustrious career. I don't want to embarrass him. He doesn't think of himself as an icon, but I do. Um, so that being said, if you could just start at the beginning with your career. How did you land in sterile processing? That seems to be
Um,
one of those things where everybody sort of falls into this
sure.
industry, and so
We,
we got
I
to hear
did.
the
I
the
actually
background. Yeah.
I actually fell into this industry um, twice. And the first one was I was attending college, and it was the summer of 1975, and I came home and I had to get a full-time job to pay off my college and different things. I was not the best student, and we won't get into that. Maybe it might end up. And there was what was called the medical center. It was Detroit Receiving, Grace, and Harper. And I had decided that I needed to get a full time job, and I applied. And the job was a midnight sterilization orderly, which I had no idea what it was. And I showed up, and the guy's manager's name or director was Mr. Gott. And he showed me how to run a steam sterilizer, press a button, as long as the green light comes, and you get three things on a graph. And he showed me what it should look like. And you do that for regular stuff, and then for liquids, and you don't pull it out fast or you'll break the bottles. And then we just dispensed what was called AMSCARs, which we would fill up the exchange carts that would go on the different floors. And then they had a tunnel system, and the tunnel system's still there. And we'd set it to 4 Hudson or 5, and they go and they come up, and then we would go to the floors, pull them off, and put the empty ones in, fill them up. And I would do sterilization loads and did that 5 days a week, and broke a lot of glass because if you pulled it out too fast, the bottles would hum. They go, and if you pulled them out too fast, they click and they'd all break. And so I did that for one year. And while I did that, I also went to EMT school. And then I also went to Wayne State University and kept going to school with the intention of um, getting something with the EMT degree and getting going from there. As I approached getting that, I realized if I wanted to make any money, I needed a 4 year degree. So I went back to school and ended up taking me a total of 6.5 years. And while I was there, I had my EMT and then graduated. And so I've been in continually different jobs from 75, but the first one was as a sterilization orderly. Then I became a emergency room coordinator. Then I became a hemodialysis technician. Then I became a cath lab technician. Then I became a cardioperfusionist. And it was during that time that I had a personal reason to get out of cardioperfusion, and it was 1985. end of 84, I got the job, but I didn't start it till 85. And I became the manager of Henry Ford Hospital's operating room reprocessing. And I've been doing sterile processing ever since then. And the head nurses at that time in the OR, uh, because I was leaving perfusion for some personal reasons. I did not kill anybody. I want people not to assume I killed anybody, or it was a very personal reason. And I've been in reprocessing ever since. But during that time, I had some people who believed in me in every point of the job. And so now I'm going to talk about two of them because I think this is what I would like people to understand. When I Henry Ford Hospital, when I worked there, had careers opportunity, and they tried to hire from within. And I applied to work in the cardiac catheterization lab, and I didn't get the job. And I went to Dr. Fareed Kaja, who was the head of cardiology in the cath lab. And I says, well, why didn't I get it? He wanted to get this outside person because I had no experience, none. But because of career opportunity, they sort of had to interview everybody who put in from the hospital. Didn't matter what it was. So I says, what do I need to do to get this job? Well, you need some background. So within 89 days, I had taken basic EKG, advanced EKG, and then heart sound sonograph, where you would listen to the heart boop, 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 backflow and all that. On the 88th day, I got a call from Dr. Kaja. He says, Steve, I want to talk to you. Okay. He says, I want to talk to you about the job. And I stopped him right there. He says, Dr. Kaja, I want you to know, you told me I had to get experience. And I showed him these continuing education things that I had passed. He says, wow. I says, you told me this is what I needed to do to get the job. And I started to do it. He says, I should have hired you the first time. He believed in me once I showed him that, and he continued to mentor me in cardiology. So you you might not get what you want, but if you ask what it is you need to do and really want it, it can come to you. And that's what's important. So many people, oh, I didn't get this. Quit complaining, a bunch of bullshit. You make your own breaks after a while, and then you look for something else. But that was that part of the story.
Well,
Anyways, whoops, I
yeah, no,
swore. I didn't mean to,
it's
you know.
okay. So you brought up a lot of things there in terms of your career trajectory. I wonder how many people, by the way, out there remember a sterilization orderly as a job title, but that was interesting. But the other thing that you just kind of were finishing up on was something that I think is really important for anybody to hear, let alone our folks in sterile processing, where maybe they're struggling to find opportunities or struggling to
Mhm.
make sense of maybe what their role is in their career or their environment in which they work right now or where they might want to go. Obviously your career zigzagged quite a bit, a little bit until you landed in sterile processing where you kind of found a passion and whatnot, which
Mhm.
is not unlike a lot of people who obtain some sort of measure of success, as people like to define it, in their career. It doesn't always seem like you're going forward or moving forward. And one thing that, you know, we had talked about earlier, and I think it would be nice if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit just about how you were in school, only because I think there's going to be a lot of people who can relate to this, and maybe it would be even a little bit of an encouragement to them who
Oh,
may have struggled throughout school, to
I
know that they
struggled.
can still make something of themselves no matter where they're at or where they were back in high school days or
That's
even
right.
earlier than that. So if you wouldn't mind, just kind of share a little bit about that, your process getting through even
Um,
early. early Catholic school and all of that.
Oh, well, we'll get to the Catholic school maybe later, but I do want to say this. I was very lucky to have, to this day, my core friends are the people I went to college. And even though I dropped out, I still went to school, and they were all encouraging me to keep going to school. Even when I went home for the year to get my head together, and they said, you know, keep going. That's why I went to Wayne State, but I wanted to get this certificate to be an EMT to get in the medical field and do things. And for those who don't know, um, the Detroit receiving, people used to see chips, or now it's all 911, but there was this other program back in the 70s with the EMT people, and I can't remember their name, the program's name, but the program at Detroit Receiving was the hardest program in the US. We started out with over 300 people and only 75 graduated. And you had to do both a practical, an oral, and a written. And it was not easy. And it taught me that if you work hard and you want something, you can get there. And you need other people in study groups and people to mentor. And my friends were always there. Oh, don't worry about it, Steve. Keep going forward. And again, my age where I'm at, there was a lot of emphasis put on going to college. So I knew if I wanted to advance later, I still needed that degree. For me in grade school, I was a bottom feeder. We'll put it at that. I had ADD. I was considered a crow. For those of you who don't know what it is, a crow is someone who, in the pecking order in the class, there's the eagles, the robins, the blue jays, the sparrows, and all the hummingbirds or whatever. Well, the crows sit as low as you can go. And it's tough being a crow. And again, I was in classes from 50 to 55 kids with one teacher. But Catholic school was great. But that, once you're a crow, they don't, you're sort of pigeonholed, and you got to get out of that. But you have to want to do it. And I
Right.
wanted to do it. And once you start believing in yourself and you find someone who believes in you, it's amazing. And I'm going to digress for a second, Kevin
Hmm.
and Adam. But the reason I became a perfusionist is at the time I was at Henry Ford, they had openings and nobody wanted to be there. And working in the cath lab, Dr. Donald McGilligan, love the guy. Unfortunately, he passed away. One of the best cardiac surgeons ever. Every night he'd come in and they'd want the cine film. That's how we used to do. We had to develop the 35 mil film and do pressure readings and all this. And he'd come in and he'd have to look for stuff. And I was working late. Nobody would lay stuff out. So one day I asked him and talked to him, well, I'm looking for this and that. So I took it upon myself while all the other techs went home to look at what the next schedule was for the cardiac surgery. And I put out the pressure readings and all the patient information. So when he came late at night, it was there, and he put it back nice and in order. And then he found out. And then I start to watch him read and say, oh, this is the stenosis. This is a backflow. We got to do the mitral valve. This is mitral valve pearl, all these things. That's the widowmaker, and that's blah, 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 blah. He saw what I did and nobody asked. I didn't do it to get a job. He says, Steve, you want to be a perfusionist? I'm going, whoa, shit, this was like huge money back then. I'm going, yeah, I got trained on the job. But it was because I didn't go after to be that, but it was hard work. And this doctor believed in me. And he says, you can do it. Here's me going, shit, I used to be a bottom feeder.
Hmm.
And here's somebody. And he mentored me. And the guys in perfusion were great. I learned. And then there was something personally that happened, and I got into reprocessing. But you got to find a mentor. You got to somebody who believes in you, latch onto them, learn from them, and they'll want to help you along. So that was sort of the early years. I got a lot in reprocessing. I've been very blessed with people. So I'll be quiet for a minute. Go ahead, Adam or Kevin.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
it's such a great story because it really highlights something that you do for other people, which is that I
Mm.
think you are an incredible mentor. You really see
Yeah.
something in people and then you encourage them to go after what they want. And I think that's a really
Well, thank
important
you.
skill to have. But I think the one thing, if I have to describe you in one word, it's passionate. You are passionate about the things that you care about and the people that you care about.
Mm.
Where did that passion come from in reprocessing? Was it like you started in reprocessing, you were like, "Oh, this is my thing," or was it did
uh,
something happen that made
a
you
lot.
that?
There's a couple things that happen.
Okay.
Um, they're sort of all together, and then there's this big person that happened. But the first time I got called into a room, and you have to, and this is my opinion of the late 70s, very early 80s. Surgeon, anesthesiologist, CRNA, nurses, scrub techs, aides, and orderly. But right after the CRNAs were pretty much perfusionists because you you literally were their heart and lungs. You can put an air bubble. You were giving the drugs. You had to know the interact. So I got to sit in the surgeon's lounge, you know, where
That says a lot.
people, where people who know me guess what I like. Steve Vasile's probably going to laugh if he ever listens. They had food. They had donuts every day. They had coffee. They
The
had
little
food
things.
coming. Oh, yeah, sandwich. I mean, I got to sit with the surgeons. So they knew me as a perfusionist. And the first time I went into a room, and I will not say the doctor's name or whatever, and he's cussing and swearing. This is the old days. He threw these forceps and scissors at me. They were dull and dirty. And he goes, Kovach, what are you doing? The people, I'm going, holy sugar. And I says, I got to figure this out. And it happened then in orthopedics. We were having lots of issues. And I had probably the best mentor, Miss Fran Cook, who took me aside and helped me. And I actually, Henry Ford, we learned the Deming Focus PDCA. We ended up, that's where I got my quality doesn't cost, it pays. I still have my whole program I presented. We solved the problem of dirty instruments and getting them incorrect, having incorrect trays where it was very small. And we got it to where either a resident or one of the orthopods at least once a month came into sterile processing and talked to the staff. And that raised our level. But it was being told these things are dirty. I can't do this. They're saying the patient's going to die. I'm like, oh my God, the severity of this stuff. And then to have a mentor like Miss Fran Cook, take your time. We learned Walter Deming stuff. Let's do a process, issue a diagram. We did what were the things that were happening. And I've told this story many times. We had a lady who was making a lot of the errors. And unfortunately, that lady, to come to find out, could not read or write. But Henry Ford did a great job. We used to have elevator operators, and they would get placed different places. So reprocessing at that time was, and nothing against housekeeping or food service, there was an opening, they put her there, and she was doing just regular simple cut down trays. Well, now we merged everybody. And when you don't read and write, well, as her manager, I should have known my employees better. I should have known that. I put her in a no-win situation, even though she was there before me. But we ended up, she got to another department and got a job she could do. But if it wasn't for that quality focused PDCA where you find out what the issue are and you go back and then you make those corrections, we really did. That's why I believe in process improvement. That's why, Kevin, I really respect you. You had that in your department and you won a quality award and you looked at process. And when we look at it that way, the people really don't make the error. We're not giving them the right tools. We don't understand things. And if we could get to that point, I think it could be a lot better. So I don't know where I went with that, but
No,
anyway, that's where I went.
yeah, no, well, and that's where a lot of your sterile processing career took off was at Henry
Oh,
Ford and under
oh,
those circumstances. And I love that you talked about, somebody who was a great mentor to you, because Adam's exactly right. I mean, that is something I think that has left such an imprint on your career personally that it seems that you are so ready and willing to take that role on for others, which is a huge help, obviously, for someone, coming over to Healthmark from the hospital. That was a huge help for me. I'm sure it was for Adam as well and others on the team. Um, so that mentorship, component is so important. And I feel like, hopefully people out there who are listening, that they have people that they both lean on, but also other people that they try and help along the way. And I
we
feel
have
like
to.
most people who are, again, have some sort of measure of success in their career, they've been helped along the way by somebody. Somebody really propped them up and put them in positions to succeed. And I love that you mentioned the stuff about Deming and the PDCA cycle and drilling down to find out what really led to quality issues, because I think that that is a really big problem in sterile processing in general, is that
Mm-hmm.
we have so many quality concerns, and our leadership aren't always equipped to on how to handle it. And so how it's typically handled is, you go and you put out the fire immediately, whether it was a missing instrument or whatever. You go and put out that fire, but then we kind of just work the technician through the corrective action
Mm-hmm.
process
Yep.
and basically work them out of their role, because they're in positions where there are mistakes and the mistakes are costly. But if you continuously churn through your staffing, you're not really getting to the root of the problems,
That's
and
right.
you're opening up the door for repeating some of those problems. So I think that's really interesting that you learned that so early on, and this was a while ago, correct? I mean,
Oh,
what years was
middle
that when you
80s,
were
like 80,
mentally? Yeah.
86. We're Deming 86, 87. I think I'd have to go back and look. Went
No, that's
into the
okay.
90s.
The point
It's
being is that you were doing quality management in sterile processing in a way that is effective, and yet to this day, we still go around and visit departments, and they don't have just that basic foundation in place. And it's, yeah, I'm sure you're going to need something to do in retirement. So if you want to go ahead and write a book on, quality management
no,
and sterile process. No, I'm just
no,
kidding. I'm
but
just kidding. But no, that would be a cool retirement project.
I think, Kevin, what you and Adam are alluding to, and I thank you for the compliments, is that all of us, you have to take that step forward and be sincere. And I see too many people thinking I'll do this or I get clicks and be successful. Don't go after being successful. Just what comes naturally. And you need to. I had more than one mentors. I had somebody who helped me in, my finances, and someone at work, and both of my wives helped me. God, through so many things. And even my two boys were mentors for me. And they sort of I put it in my going away thing. This is when you used to have carousels. I'd have my boys down there and I'd be practicing this, and they go, oh, you could talk to them now. They know all about TOSI, but they know about dirty instruments and stuff. Here's my, 8-year-old son and the 12-year-old. They're sitting down in the basement and they're going, oh, Dad, you're boring. If I can't get my kids to sort of listen, what am I going to do out there, for God's sakes? Or they go, Dad, you're umming again. You're going, duh, duh. And they were mentors in a way, in a fun way,
Yeah.
but you've got to be able to understand. I was also very blessed uh, to get to know Dr. Martin Favaro, who did a lot of work with the CDC and then ASP, and he worked on the moon, the lunar project for NASA with the sterile room and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And I got to know him, and um, I had to get over something. Every time he was in the audience, I tried to impress him on saying things. And one day he came up to me and he says, Steve, just speak from your heart and what you know. I says,
Mm.
what? Don't try to impress me or anybody. He says, I know you know what you're talking about. Don't, and I'm going, I got to make sure I sound, real smart and not real smart. I'm trying, but when he was in the audience, I would actually get more nervous because this is Dr.
Mm.
Martin Favaro. I mean, you can still see him and Dr. Webb wrote stuff, and you find his name all over on things. And I got to know him, and when he come into town, we'd have dinner and different things. But he taught me, don't go out to impress people. Make sure when you speak, people know it's a fact or what you're speaking from. And if it's your opinion, let them know it's your opinion, but just be upfront and talk about it. And he says, if you don't know, there's nothing wrong with saying you don't know. That's why I say, if I don't know, I'll call somebody, I'll get back with you, but I'll get back with you. None of us know everything.
Right.
And I don't know. He used to make me nervous when he told me that, because I was trying to impress him. And this was before I worked with Healthmark, and he helped me become a better public speaker of actually giving me critiques. And I have to do this. We work with Mary Ellen Fortenberry, and there's some other
Mhm.
people that's retired. Well, Mary Ellen hasn't, and my friend Ray Tarasi retired, Ann Cofield passed away, and Martha Young passed away. And I want to share this with you. I'm not saying this to impress you.
Mhm.
It's hopefully I can get this point across. It's 1999. It's the first World Federation. It's in Orlando, Florida. And Marion Fortenberry is presenting, and I'm presenting, and Ann Cofield's presenting. And we are the day before in a room, not the auditorium, with our carousel. And Martha, I think Janet Proust was there too. And I'm not doing this to throw out names. I'm trying to remember. I think Janet was there too. And they're all there, and we're each taking our turn, and we're going over. I mean, this is like, they're going to have earphones with people speaking different language and all this stuff. And here were my friends and my peers, and they were all helping us. No, you need to say, be more relaxed. Don't do this. You're talking too fast. And it was so much fun to be with people who were just trying to help you be more professional, to be better, to get your point across. Uh,
Mm.
for me, it was all my slides. You can ask Suzanne Latta. Everybody's always correcting the English on my slides. They're always wrong. I have poor English. So, but you need to find people that will be honest with you and say, that doesn't make sense. Or you can they know how to give you some really good criticism. If it wasn't for those people, that's not the right. If it wasn't for the people I had that were all mentored to me in different ways, I would not have gotten where I'm at. But I was
Mhm.
willing to accept that criticism of, okay, you need to do this, you need to change that. And I don't think we do that enough for people. How do
Mhm.
you practice? How do you rehearse? I don't know. I've been
No, I
blessed.
think
I can give you a whole list of people. Go ahead,
Sure.
Adam.
no, I think that That's a really good point, and it's something that I kind of wanted to talk about when you were talking about mentors and how important it is to have people that believe in you. I think it's not just somebody that tells you all good things or just,
Right.
gives you advice. It's also
Mhm.
somebody who challenges you and who tries
Yes.
to help you grow, and maybe sees that you're stagnating, maybe sees that you're frustrated, maybe sees that you need a little help moving forward.
Hmm.
And that's a really important part of mentorship.
Yes.
um, talk a little bit about being a mentor to others, because you are, I think, Kevin, I think you would agree. I know
Yeah.
Sharon would feel the same way. Seth, a lot of us who have worked at Healthmark all feel this way about you. Like, we really feel like you are our kind of guiding light. You're our mentor. You're the one that shows
Uh,
us how to be an educator and how important that is. So what do you
mm.
think makes a good mentor? You've had mentors in the past, you've mentored a lot of people. What do you try to do for people that
um,
really helps them grow?
well, I'm the different people help me at different stages through my career. Different mentors help me put the pieces of the puzzle together. So it wasn't just one, but first, all of them honestly believed in me as a person, and they, whether you talk to my college roommates, they might give you a different opinion of me, but they believed of me as a person who cared. And if you see that in like both of you, you can tell if somebody is sincere. And if you know they're sincere in what they're doing, for me as a mentor, I want to be with that person because they're going to help me in some other way too, to help me keep grounded. And what I have found, what the people have done to me, they says, Steve, what is it that excites you? What is it that you really want, you want to talk about, or what is it you are passionate about? And then they would do the five whys, why, and you get to the fifth why, you really know um, why it is, and each one would come up with something different. Um, uh, Ann Cofield for me was a person, how I present myself, how I walk. And she says, don't slouch, don't do these, you want to look professional. You want to, and then somebody on how you talk. But when you know somebody is a caring person, you know that you can talk to them exactly how you're saying. You don't go and yell, yeah, you need to do this and that. You got to find a way. Sometimes I do yell, but each person, it's different and they're at different stages. And you have to find out where they're at and where they feel comfortable at. And, you know, I just think I have to feel that I know the person is a caring person. And from there, we just figure out where they're at and what they want to do and how do I help them go about doing it. And I've always believed, and we've had it, and this is what I like about Healthmark. The last two or three big meetings, we've had people telling stories, and you have to be able to relate to the people. And it doesn't matter whether you have a PhD or no PhD or no,
Mm.
you have to understand who your audience is. And that's something I've tried to mentor people. Know who's out there. If you have a lot of technicians, you you take your talk a different way. You have to have whatever your presentation is, you have to be able to gear certain slides a different way to whoever you're there. And that's what you try to help the person with. Well, how would you speak to somebody like this? Or what was if you got a mixed crowd? Um, and it's again, probably, let me put it to this way. Um, I am going to tell this story. I wasn't going to, and you both have heard it, and I did it in my last talk. But I've tried to make sure whoever I've mentored, if we get to this stage, is that your goal is, if you know you've conveyed the information correctly, and you know you've reached one person, then you've done your job. It doesn't matter that you don't want to hit all 100. You would like to. And so I use the example of Anne, my first wife, who in her last year or so, she lost the ability to swallow, and we were feeding with a bag tube and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not meaning to take light of it. Trust me, I'm trying not to go into too much detail. And every time she would come home, and her last year, I think it was, in her last full year of living, I think it was 10 times she was in ICU and then came home. So imagine 10 times going in ICU, going through other stuff and coming home. And when you come home, you get a therapist, and then, we get them all 5, 6, and never really the same person. And so she got this speech therapist. Her name was Michelle. I still have her card. And Michelle goes, and this goes back to also being a good mentor. And what is it that you really want to accomplish? So what do you want to accomplish as a speaker? What do you want to accomplish in your work? Where can I help you? If I can't, I'll find somebody. And she said at that time, my wife loved coffee. And she says, I'd like to drink a cup of coffee. And so what I would do when my wife was in the hospital and she'd get out of special care, she loved Javalia coffee, and I take this carafe of it. And yes, I left my son Peter home by himself at 4:35 in the morning. He was, I don't know, 9th or 10th grade. I can't remember. I know, don't put me in jail. But I went to see my wife to bathe her and whatever, even though they would, and to give her a cup of coffee, which she wasn't supposed to have, and to make sure she didn't choke and whatever. And usually she put it in her mouth and spit out, and every once in a while. I want to make sure that made her day. They could do whatever they wanted her. If she got a little coffee in her mouth, she was like pleased as punch. So this Michelle goes, Anne, I think we could make you have a drink of coffee and have some tapioca. We're going, bullshit. This is, my wife couldn't smile, couldn't have tears, a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
And this lady went on her own from Michigan to Ohio to a speech therapist meeting, paid her own way on a Saturday. How many technicians are doing that right now? A lot of them. She said, I heard somebody from Vital Stem, and they have this thing as they stick these electrodes on your throat, and then you gotta stretch it. So there happened to be this study right close by. She got enrolled. Now, for me, you need support of other people in your family, whether it's you learning. I had neighbors. I had my best friend, Andy. I had her best friend, Peggy, the girls from IHM. I had to work. I couldn't take her every day to this therapy, and they're taking x-rays and doing all this stuff. And in fact, I missed the first day she was able to actually have a little coffee. And my friend Andy, I think he was there when she was able to eat some tapioca. But this person went somewhere on their own and learned something and came back. One person.
Right.
An impact that she made all the world. And then my wife, unfortunately, ended up passing away, and they couldn't finish the study because they still needed some x-rays and some other things. So the study never got published. But this is what, as an educator, if you convey the information properly, they know you're sincere. Yeah, my passion is to try to get people understand. And the cleaning part, to get back to you, see, I'm long-winded and ADD. It's the dirty instruments that were thrown with me. I got to learn why that. I got to stop that. I got another story about that in a minute. But it's this whole thing of, you're going to go know your topic. People are going to ask you questions. If you don't know it, you don't know it. This lady did everything, and she made my wife happy. You see
At a
what I
critical
mean?
time too, at a critical time in her end of life
But
care.
how many you guys speak all
Mm.
over? You know it, Adam is running as a president. Techs are paying their own way. We got to keep it at $25 or $10, and you got to get time off. You got everybody's got issues. So you want to make sure what you present is accurate. It can be enjoyable and fun and so on. Did
So
that
I want
sort
to,
of answer it?
yeah.
Or whatever. I don't know. You're just let me ramble.
No, I mean, he was asking about mentors, and you brought up somebody who did something for your wife during one of the most critical times in her end of life care that was special.
Mm-hmm.
And, sort of likening that to the situation where many of us are in this industry where you kind of are stuck in a lot of ways, and that you almost have to go above and beyond in order
Yeah.
to leave your mark sometimes. But what I wanted to point out too, as you keep telling these stories, and it ties back into mentorship and you're easily, I don't know if you identify this in yourself or not, but and because I don't know that, I'm going to point it out. But you are one of the most people-oriented individuals I've ever met. So like you remember names, you remember uh, people's stories, their personal stories, things like that. And I think that goes a long way as well in
So
terms of, being a good mentor for somebody or identifying.
I will tell you why. One of the
Yeah.
reasons this goes back to uh, Dr. McGilligan. He, God, what a great thoracic surgeon. Oh my God. He just had all this faith in me. And he remembered, he actually dove into why I dropped out of school and how I got a degree. And he later on remembered those details. He taught me the importance of listening. And sometimes we hear, I know my wife says I don't listen, but he taught me the importance of between hearing and listening and trying to remember when somebody talks, they have inflections, or that's why I like to see people in person. You get to see their body language. And when they tell you some things, he taught me to pick up when, somebody can talk, yeah, I did this and that, their slumped shoulders and whatever. He taught me how to read people in a way of, if you start telling me a story about maybe Kevin, you and the pride of your daughter, I think she was the major, she sang or homecoming queen. My mind's going too many things right now, but
Mhm.
when you talked about that, your facial expressions and the the fatherly pride comes out. So when you're talking with people, there are certain things that when they're talking about, you want to remember that as you go to them and you can say, remember when you shared with me how that's what you pull that feeling in, and that will get you through. And he taught me that because he would remember these details. And I say, hell, most of the people just remember I drank a lot or something. I wasn't trying. I don't want to use, but that to me important is seeing the body language. And when somebody tells you something and they tell you something that means to them, they are opening up their life to you. And
Right.
hopefully you can remember part of it. So when you come back, that feeling of what you can help them draw to help it come out better. So I'm going to tell you one more. This now you're making it about me, but what he had did. Again, I was taught on the job, and Mary Jo, you've sort of heard this, so Mary Jo's whatever. Um, uh, let's see, how do I say this? When Ann and I got married, This is the first I know of, and I don't know if it's ever happened again. Dr. Donald McGilligan Jr. closed down for the day the thoracic program at Henry Ford Hospital. So the team could come to my wedding. There were no scheduled surgeries. It had to be an ultimate emergency. He was there. Dr. Lewis was there. Dr. Lester was there. Team was there. He showed me what kindness is about and rewarding people where you don't go after the reward, things just happen. And if you do things for the right reasons, some unbelievable things will happen to you that you never know. And that's what I try to do, is let people know, just work hard. Don't go after, if it happens, it happens. But if you do the right thing, which is hard to do every day, it is hard as a manager, as a technician,
Yep.
But keep believing in yourself. And I didn't ask him to do it. I don't know what that had to, that was what a mentor did for me. And then as a mentor, that's where I learned you try to do something special for the people when they accomplish something. When you see them give that talk that really, and if you were able to be there, you let them know. And you say, look at you, you nailed it. You did, see, you had it within you. Now take that and continue to do that. And then you try to help somebody next time and to go from there. I don't know. I hope that all means something to you or anybody. I am blessed with so many different things that got me to where I'm at. We didn't even talk about the Basile family. So go ahead. What, Adam?
I know we haven't talked about the Basiles yet either. As a mentor, I think that it's so important to do those personal things, to know somebody, to remember those details about them, to listen, all of that stuff. And I think that's what makes you, I can tell just by these stories, and Kevin, I know you agree with this. We could listen to you tell these stories for hours and hours and hours, because they'll show us, it's an insight into like what makes you such an incredible mentor and a public speaker. And I think that's my question that I wanted to ask you, because I would beat myself up if I didn't ask you this. But as a public speaker, I think a lot of us in the industry would put you on a pedestal as, if not the best, certainly one of the top 5 best public speakers in the industry.
Very nice.
And the one thing that I'm always impressed with is you can hold an audience, and it's so fascinating to watch, because you can tell these stories and you can have people crying. I've seen it before where the entire room of people is laughing, and you can do it within a span of 5 to 10 minutes. You get them crying and you get them laughing. And how do you, as a public speaker, what do you try to do to make that connection with the audience?
It's not with his slides, I can tell you that.
It's not the slides, no.
I have to agree. Every meeting, you have, I try to do something a little different. If you've really been around, like for a state meeting or something, I like to go around to the tables and talk to people. What are you looking for in today's meeting? Why'd you come here? What was this? Well, I'm hoping they're speaking about, oh, okay. Well, I'm a speaker. I don't know if let me see. I try to understand who is in my audience if I can before I speak. Or sometimes we have to do a vendor show and then you speak afterwards and you get, but I think it's how you get to know your audience. And as I get to talk to people, what are they looking for? And how do I work to convey with them to get away from, it's another speaker. It's like you say, the slides there, but coming and bringing the people that I met to say, I met Shirley out there and she wanted me to talk about this. Shirley, I can't, but you know what? Here's something that might go along with it. And I think you have to know your audience. And I walk around sincerely trying to find out what people want and see how I can incorporate it and bringing in a story. Or some of them will tell me, well, what's wrong at your place? And I really believe this. If you go back and look at publications, we're still solving the same stuff. People are still not washing their hands. They're still not spraying stuff. They're still not opening instruments. Washers aren't working right. This isn't, people aren't assembling right. The indicator isn't where do we do biologicals every load or this load or that load and so they tell you their stories of their problems and you try to intertwine that in there to bring them in. And so I think I do that differently than other speakers. And I had, again, a different mentor who helped me and told me I had really bombed. And I asked him what they says. Didn't you look at them? So people don't know. You look out there and people are sleeping. They're looking on their phone, going, "Oh shit, sugar." How did I lose them? And I really thought I get all. She says, I don't think anybody got anything from you. And I like take that balloon or you let it go and go. And she says, you had no idea why those people were there. Why are they there? As a speaker, do you really know why they are sitting in that room? Yeah. And I try to find out. That's just my CEUs. Okay, I'll get you laughing about CEUs, or whatever. You've got to understand why they're there. That's what I think.
No,
I don't know. Did I answer that, Kevin? Or Adam?
Yeah. So I think you pointed out a few things there that I think would go a long way for people. I know there's a lot of people out there trying to kind of pave their way in the industry and step up and become, somebody that's looked on as a resource or become a really good speaker for the industry and things like that. And you mentioned a lot of things in there. One of them that I think is interesting that I think for anybody who's aspiring to be a public speaker in the industry or any industry is to kind of focus on your own sort of presentation, learning the presentation, learning the content front and back, and being able to answer questions. And I think all those things are smart to do, but and just becoming, prepared. But there's something to be said for going around and actually introducing yourself to people before the thing even starts, getting to know them. Why are they there? Even sharing maybe even a little bit about you. So now there's a little bit of a connection there before you even start.
You got it, Kevin.
Where you know each other. And that's what I think is really interesting about what you do is your focus is so much stronger than anyone I've ever seen in terms of making the priority about people and relationships. And I think you just pointed out really practical ways to do that, both as a speaker or as an educator. And I think that's really important. Like for me, I've always been one of those people who's like, I can't remember names. I'll never be good, but those are self-limiting beliefs. And I think that anybody who like you goes around and you get to know people. I think there was a time where that probably was difficult, or sometimes you still have trouble, maybe remembering someone's name,
Yes.
but the effort that you put into it is intentional.
Well, that's nice.
And
Thank
I think people pick up on that. And I think that changes how you're looked upon. But also another thing is paying attention in the moment while you're actually presenting to the people who you're talking to and kind of picking up on cues. And that's what makes in-person teaching so much more interactive and in some ways valuable than the online thing is you get to kind of read the room. And in order to do that, you got to kind of not be focused on yourself. You got to be focused on how can I impact these people for the good today? And regardless of what I really intended on speaking on, how can I really get that across. So a lot of things I think that you pointed out there that are really important for people to pick up on. And I hope
And
I
people have
did.
to be, yeah, you did. You have
Yeah.
to, you become comfortable just walking. The comedians say you have to know the room. You
Yeah.
do, and that's the only way. And this has happened. I know it's happened to you guys. You have a talk prepared, and even talking with the sales reps or whatever. Boy, I hope you're going to talk about this or that, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, that's not in that. Well, I thought it was. Could you find a way? I got customers out there that got these problems, and it's not about our product. It's about they have a problem and they need somebody to help. Then all of a sudden, somebody else raises a hand, and now you've created this conversation with the other people there, which is so important. And you've become the conduit of everybody's now speaking. Yeah, well, we did it this way, we did it that way, right, Kevin and Adam? You've been there. All of a sudden, a nurse does it this way, but you have to moderate, so make sure somebody doesn't say, "Oh, that's not the wrong way." It's they did it this way, you did it this way. You'll find out what works for you. But now you've brought that group of people in. You know, I've seen you both do it. It just you've got to understand. So that's where, um, how do I say it? When you've been a bottom feeder and neglected a lot, you learn that, all it takes is somebody, you learn if somebody's sincere. And, you're not doing it to get noticed. It's just sort of, there's a lot of shy people and you got to know not to go out of their comfort zone. But you do, you just, you take the room and you figure it out, and to go from there. Um,
So, so I want to, obviously we were talking about mentorship, and I know that um, I also want to get into your time here at Healthmark
I
at the
do.
same time. And I am limited on time at this point, and I'm hoping that maybe we can. I'm already thinking in my head we need a part two of this, but at any rate, I want to give you some time to get into the Healthmark side of things. And
I
I
do.
know that you look at the Basiles as mentors as well. So I
Oh,
feel like it's a great transition to kind of get into the Healthmark side of your career and
uh,
just kind of how did it start and give us a
oh,
little background on that.
well, we're just gonna go and we're gonna go start 2000. We're not gonna go before that because all the Basiles called on me, and there's a joke. I never bought anything from them. Okay. I did buy a few things, and there's some stories I'll tell you another time. But um, around 2000, um, my family situation was changing, but I had 96%, 95% of the time, I had always reported to nursing, and there was going to be a change in who I reported to where I
And this
was
is while you were
working.
managing sterile processing. Is that
Yes,
right? Okay.
yes, and while I was in nursing, because I had a bachelor's degree, I was being paid as a nurse manager. Okay.
Wow.
You as a nurse know what that means.
Yeah.
Okay. And think of somebody in sterile processing. They were never going to be at a nurse. Well,
Right.
unless you're in the real big, So because of my degree and my certifications in that, well, I was going to materials management and I was going to be redlined. Red line means you're making more money than anybody else in that job and that thing where you're keeping your job, but you're not going to get some raises for a long time.
Mm.
Well, that doesn't sit too well with Steve Kovach because if you ain't going to give me some more money, where's the money? That does speak.
Yeah.
Um, and some things going on with my personal life with my wife and my mother also, which I won't get into. Um, Ralph and Steve, who both were calling on me, sort of knew I was not happy, maybe starting to look. I was maybe thinking of finally maybe doing something for one of the bigger companies, or whatever. And they came to me and they said, "Are you interested?" They were looking to move the company in another direction. And they want to know if I want to come work for them. And we made an agreement. I needed not to do a traditional job, but I got 2 paychecks for them for many years. I got a Healthmark paycheck for my day part, and they owned Vasile Incorporated, which was a rep agency. So I would go to doctor's office and sell spirometers, teach people, and Puritan Bennett, and we sold action pads, and I sold some drugs for them for a while, microscopes. Oh God, I don't remember half the stuff I used to sell. Oh, scales. And I'd have to call on doctor's offices. So I was getting
Wow.
paid, and once they got made an agreement with Martin Pfeiffer to become the sole distributorship, and I won't get into who they beat out and all that. Ralph and them believed in they need an educator. I had already started to get a name because I was speaking up until that time for both Kimberly-Clark and 3M. They were sponsoring me to speak, and I was speaking 4 or 5 times. But in those days, I had to use my vacation time or other things to go speak or do it on weekends or go audit hospitals. But I needed that. They were helping get my name out there. So I made an agreement with them, and they had a plan on how to work through cleaning verification, and they believed it. Ralph mentored me on standards and how to work that through, and also sales. Steve mentored me on sales, Ralph on marketing. Steve on sales, Ralph on marketing, Mark on how the business ran and different things. And they said, "We need you to do this. We'd like you to do it this way." And one thing led to another. And so in 204, we did, no, 202, 203, no, 204. I got to go back. We did our first College of Clean with Texas Scottish Rite in Dallas with Wade Collins, who was a past president. And we had 89 people, and they paid $25 to attend and get a free lunch and donuts and coffee in the morning. And it was a huge success. We were the only vendors. Oh my God. I did my first 6 hours of myself, College of Clean, all by myself speaking. Ralph critiqued me. Ed Hort. It
What year was
took
this?
off.
I'm sorry, I don't
Oh,
mean to
I think
interrupt
it's 04.
you.
04, 20 years
First
ago.
College of Clean in
The first
2004.
one.
That's why I wanted to jot
And
that, make a
I
mental
just got
note.
to double check. I have it all, but I don't think it was 202. It was 204 because it was 204. And we used to collect the money, Sharon. It was a nightmare. And I actually that year brought in Sharon Rojo, Dr. Bradley Catalone from Olympus, Karen Owens, who spoke for us. She was at Louisville Baptist, I think. Myself, they all came and spoke in Detroit at the at the DMC. They all came and spoke, and we would start sponsoring our own meetings. I learned that from Kimberly-Clark and 3M. I patterned everything. They taught me so well. We were cookie cutting these out. And then we partnered later. We got John Fish would come speak. We get Rod Parker, but I was doing these all day, six hours on my own, College of Clean, 7 factors, 8 factors, and it got to 10 factors: manual cleaning, automatic cleaning, sonic cleaning, transportation, cart wash. Boom. We were just clicking it out, and I was speaking 25 to 35 times those first couple years, every Saturday, anywhere who wanted us. And they had a plan, and I believed in them, and they said, this is how you need to act. This is what you need to do. They'd listen to me. Ralph would say, "No, Steve, you need this." Steve, Steve would say, "You're talking too much." Honest God, they tell me, "You're talking too much product." I says, "I thought I want to." No. You want the kind. It wasn't about the product. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't there. And it was talk about what people need to do. And they had a plan, and it just, I have the utmost, I am a product of what they wanted to take place. And they had trust in me to do that. And I had trust in them to do what they say. When Ralph and I used to go to Amy meetings, and we drive because it was too expensive. And we actually stayed in a motel, not a hotel. I mean, I'm telling you, it was, he kicked my right leg under. Stop it! You don't say that. No, this isn't what I'd be wanting to say. No, that's not how you act, Steve. This is what you do. You wait for your opportunity. You present the facts. You do. It mentored me on the correct way to act in these meetings, and I just got tons of stories with him. But it was at Texas Scottish where Wade Collins. Wade unfortunately passed away a few years afterwards. He was a big proponent of Healthmark and was the first data log users. And it's been 20 years, and I started out 6 hours by myself. I miss it. I had hoped to do one last 6-hour one, but it didn't happen. And I got to do 3 hours in Houston and at Herman Memorial, and I really enjoyed that. So I got 3 of the 6 hours in, but it was anyways. Well, we got about 12 more minutes. Did I get to what you wanted, guys, right now? I don't know. I've been very blessed. They are some of the most remarkable people to work for. Ralph would say, and Steve and Mark, so many times, what's right for the patient. And that has stuck with me. It's always, and they would say, you can tell the customer other people got products. Don't worry about it. And that was great. I got one more quick story here. So this
Excellent.
goes back to Karen Noss in Boston. And this was when the internet was taken off. And this is how much Ralph believed in some things. And she says, this was before Isham came up with their website talking. Ralph let us put this thing together. I got 20 professionals like Miriam Fortenberry, Nancy Chobin, Ray, all these people. So if you had a question, you would type it into us and it'd come in, and we'd send it out to these 20 people, and they would come back and answer the question for people. And it was like a talk board. And then Ralph and them believed in the Healthmark Digest. We started out daily, Ralph and I, writing it, and we couldn't do it anymore. Then it became weekly. And praise Matt Smith. Oh, Matt Smith, I love you. He's the one who writes it now. But and Ralph and them said, let's be creative. Let's do things different. So we came up with the College of Crazy for Clean Games. What can we do? How can we make education? They were, sure, it shows some of our products, but we're teaching people what to do. And they were willing, as a company, how can we better educate our customer? They always believe, what's that guy who sells suits? Sims. Educated customers, the best customers, something like
There
that.
you go. Yeah.
They always says, if we just educate them and get them to understand the rest will fall into place over time. You don't have to push the product. Talk about what's the standards. What do you need to do correctly? And yeah, I better. Okay. Yeah. That's a little bit about Healthmark. There you go. And here it is 24 years later. I've been blessed, and I'm 71, and it's sort of time for it's my time. I got grandkids and a wonderful second wife in Mary Jo, and we want to do things. And I been very, very blessed.
So I want to say, number one, it's well deserved. You've worked very hard and very passionately for a very long time, giving of yourself and your time. And I hate to do this, but I would like to see if there's any way we could at least do a part two, because I believe there's so much more to your portion of the Healthmark story that I'd like to be able to tell. And I know you're kind of wrapping things up, but I would like to at least
I think we'll
maybe
be able that
get a
we'll
part two
figure
at
it out.
some point.
We will for that we will I will I will figure a way on a beach in Cabo somewhere to tell you. No, I won't. But I want to say this, and since it is being recorded, and this is we just had another friend retire, John Whalen, who I look up to. I think is one of the best, most respected educators in endo. He made me better. And you don't know how great it was to get Mary Ann to speak endo. I had to speak endo till she came along, and then to get John, and you ran endo and all you guys. But John Whalen, my hat's off to him. He was one of the most professional people I ever met. His humor, and again, he's helped me in ways that you don't know. Ralph and I run into U of M, getting him what he wants. He comes up with ideas, and he always put the patient first. And that's one of the reasons I like John. But I'm going to say this: every educator, even the new ones who I don't know as well, you all have this common thread that you enjoy what you're doing and you want to help. I honestly believe this. None of you want to be famous in the sense of, yeah, we need clicks or whatever. You just want to make sure people get the right information and know how to do it the right way. I believe that in my heart. And that is a compliment to you, Adam, to you, Sharon, to Mary Ann, to Kevin, to now Michael, Melinda, and Rebecca. Somewhere I haven't known as well, and just because of COVID, and we don't get to travel as much together, and whatever. But I really want people to walk away that this team, that Healthmark, now getting a company, has people who care about the patient first. And I have seen it in every one of the people that I have met. And now I'm going to say something else. One of the reasons I believe I was successful, yes, it's my personality and all those other things that you were kind enough to say, is I always believed, and I still believe this, that the people who package and pick things in customer service and do the billing and in our quality have been told we're doing it for the patient. And because they did such a good job, companies do miss things, but because they don't see our product being shipped properly and people opening it up and everything there correctly, that is the first impression they get of Healthmark. Is they see our product, they open it up, is the IFU there, is the information there? And if they don't, they call and they get, because there was something Mr. Basile himself said to everybody: you answer the phone with a smile. And if you do that, it comes across. And I've always remembered what Mr. Basile said, Mr. Senior. But I believe everybody at Healthmark they want to do the right thing because we see it. We're at the factory, and that's what makes us still different to this day. It made us different then, and why a nice big company bought us. And it is because everybody cares, and you guys care, and that's really what makes our speakers different and better. And I wanted people to hear that. And Adam, you do it, and you guys put your heart and soul, and Marianne and everybody. And I don't think I left anybody out. And even Seth, I know you went on to other things, but even while you were here, I have to say, I learned from you. You helped me to be better. And we all move on for many different reasons. So how about that? How about that? Adam, what do you got to say? You're the control module, Major Tom to Adam, or was it David Bowie there, a song or whatever?
Yeah, ground controlled Major Tom. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it.
There you go.
Ground control to Major Adam. There we go.
We are out of time, but I just wanted to say, I do hope we get a part two. We should definitely do a part two. I think telling the Healthmark story, and then Steve as a big part of that, because we didn't get into the Basiles. And for those that don't know, the Basile family owned Healthmark for a very long time, built it from a very small family-run company into what it is today, which is a very large entity. So, and Steve, you were a huge part of that story. So let me just end this portion of the podcast by saying thank you for everything you've done. And I know I speak for everyone at Healthmark. You have been, the Basiles and Ralph, and I give Ralph and Steve and all the Basile family all the credit in the world. But you were the fourth Basile brother. You were as equal a part of that as they were, and helping to build this to be what it is. And then for our education team, you have been everything. You've given us guidance, you've given us knowledge, you've given us your friendship, and taught us so many things. So from all of us to you, just thank you for everything you've done for Healthmark and everything you've done for us.
You're well. Thank you. I'm
It's been an honor.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Thanks. Same here, guys. All right. Have a good. Goodbye. Okay. Thanks. Bye.